everybody. It's me, Junior, your lich, and we're back. It might be hard to believe. With the Mite No podcast, episode 20. We did it. I'm here with Rudy. Say hello, Rudy.
The hello.
There we go. All right, so today we'll be covering episodes 96 to 100. Uh, Full disclosure, we haven't recorded in a while, and I watched these episodes a long time ago. So this might be a short episode because I probably won't be able to go as in depth as I normally do. Also, they're like 4 filler episodes, so I'm not too asked about it. Um, I think it's like 4 or 3 filler episodes this block. But we start off with episode 96, which was titled The Green City and the Kung Fu Dugongs, which is great. So we pick up outside of the capital, outside of Alubarna Palace, where the citizens are revolting. If you can say that again. Um, and we see the guards, getting almost to the point of using violence to sort of push them back. Not wanting to, but like almost getting to that point. And then Vivi's dad shows up, and orders the guards to fucking knock that shit off, because that's not what they're about here. If these people have a complaint with the king, they can come and talk to the king always. And we kind of get a little bit of a view um, into what Cobra is as a person in this scene, which is very nice because I would describe Cobra as a good man, a kind man in a tough situation, where he can't help his citizens. They're running out of food, they're running out of patience. Um, but again, like half of the army has defected, and Cobra has a full-on basic civil war on his hands, and several years of drought, which is not great. But he basically, admits that he can't solve their problems right now, but he can hear them and listen to them because that is his burden. And I think Oda really likes Vivi and Cobra and really wants us to like Vivi and Cobra, which is fair, and for the most part, fans do. He just definitely goes out of his way to make us very sympathetic for Cobra. Um, we then cut away from that. Um, And we get back to Usopp and Luffy on the Sunny, and they're playing with some rice, and Sanji, hits them not to play with their food. We get some shtick basically, with them like throwing rice balls around and whatnot. And we get again what I would call like a good time with the crew, um, being all together, which again doesn't happen all that often, and in the last like 6 years has been really rare up until the very current story in the anime and the last arc in the manga that finished. During all this, Vivi asks Nami if they can stop because she has an important task for Karoo. She has written a letter revealing all the secrets of Baroque works, and she gives Karoo his water and the letter and sends him off. And Ace has been traveling with the crew right now, and he seems to know that something is up with Crocodile. He seems to know that something is going on. And then we get the beautiful scene because and you're going to have to deal with this a lot over the course of this arc, but I am just a huge Crocodile fanboy. Crocodile is literally my favorite One Piece character. If we take, like I have different categories of characters in One Piece. Like all-time favorite is Crocodile, for sure. And we see him talking to Miss All Sunday. Um, and she sort of informs him about the ships that were taken out by Ace. Um, and he tells her basically that they have more volunteers for billions than they have ever needed, basically. And if someone gets in their way, crush them. And she basically says that she's already sent people to do that. Um, they arrive at the desert, the whole crew. We cut back to the ship, leaving Miss All Sunday and whatnot behind. And they're learning a little bit more about the desert. We find out it gets over 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the desert, which is pretty hot. I don't know how hot it gets where you live, Rudy. Uh, Probably not that hot. I know in my village in Canada, it would get to about 42 in the summer, and that's pretty fucking unbearable. And here in Japan, it gets about to the same, which I would also say is pretty fucking unbearable. Um, Nami and Vivi change out of their sexy dancing outfits that Sanji gave them because they'll burn if any of their skin is exposed. And this is where we get introduced to the Kung Fu Dugongs, which Usopp is just an idiot. Like we see Usopp being a bit of an idiot and getting his ass kicked. And then Luffy shows down and beats up the Kung Fu Dugongs and earns their respect. And they basically they basically begin following Luffy um, as he becomes their master. And they want to follow him into the desert. Chopper comes up with a great idea for them to stay behind. This whole part of the episode is pretty silly, but not pointless because this episode isn't filler as much as it can feel like it at times. This episode is definitely not filler. Um, and the Kung Fu Dugongs, as ridiculous as they are, uh, is actually important to the story later, and we'll see when that happens. Um, and Sanji gets a little mad that they give the Dugongs food because that lowers their supplies. The pirates head off, and they end up getting to a place called Irumal. I don't remember how to pronounce that. And they basically explain what's happening a little bit more. We get more exposition at this point. We find out a little bit more about dance powder. That this thing we saw happen with Luffy and the weird man out in the hut, basically. Um, and that this dance powder has the ability to sort of steal hydration from other places to make it rain wherever the powder is. Um, and basically, for the last 3 years, uh, there has been not a lot of rain in Alabasta. Apparently, dance powder was used in Alubarna, and people thought it was real rain and called it the King's Miracle. However, it looks like that the king was framed for using dance powder, or dance powder was being used without the king's knowledge. And it basically caused the civil war and the conflict and the divide between the multiple people within the village, or within the country, because it's implied that the king was using dance powder to make it rain only where he was and sucking all the rain from the rest of the country to sacrifice them in that response. But what we know of Cobra is there's basically no way in hell he would ever do that. Luffy gets angry and like punches down a building. Um, and how he can't basically explain that he can't wait to beat the shit out of Crocodile, which is like you might not think it's important foreshadowing, uh, but it kind of is, and this is going to be like an interesting thing that's going to come up in quite a few episodes from now, maybe within the next 10 episodes or so. But Luffy gets really hung up on this idea of beating up Crocodile. And like, yeah, that's like Luffy's kind of thing. That's what he wants to do. It's Luffy, you put him in a new arc, you give him a new big bad guy, and he's gonna want to fight the big bad guy and prove he's, not weaker than that big bad guy. He can beat that guy up and go do whatever he wants, because that's Luffy's like modus operandi, basically. Um, and you have this situation where Luffy and Oda is really good about this. Oda does some writing in the Alabasta arc. Like there is a good reason this is many people's like favorite arc of One Piece. I don't agree with the people who say you should just skip the first like 80 episodes and just start watching from the Grand Line, which some people do suggest, especially because the animation in the other older episodes is so old. Um, or they're like, just watch the movie episode of East Blue, and it's like an hour and a half long, and then just dive right into the Grand Line arc. I still don't think that's necessarily the best thing to do. Um, but Oda sometimes, not always, but sometimes Oda's so good at foreshadowing that I just have to stop and just get like genuinely impressed with the man. Um, because Vivi is always struggling in these episodes. She's always having a hard time because there are so many things that she needs to do. I think it was covered. Um, is it covered in a later episode? Okay, yeah, it's covered in an episode. We'll talk about this block, but not yet. But Vivi is really conflicted about a lot of things. Um, and she's sort of being pulled in all directions, but Luffy isn't, and that's going to cause some conflict. And Oda's just really good at peppering that in over the course of the whole start of the Alabasta arc. Ever since we learn about Crocodile and Vivi joins the crew, Luffy is single-mindedly always throwing out these little one-liners that just feel very Luffy, but Oda is using that as like a subtle hammer, tip tapping a nail into place. Doot, 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 doot. Um, and it's really good. And you kind of don't notice it unless you are really paying attention to everything Luffy says, and sometimes it's really out of place. But it's Luffy, so you know it feels normal. But that's basically it. At the end, we get a new ending. It's called Fish, and it's by a band called the Kaleidoscopes. It is not here very long. I think this ending is only here for like 7 episodes. We are almost at the point in One Piece where ending themes stop existing. Um, for most of the series, I think they've started to come back in some of the more recent anime seasons. But for most of One Piece, there are no ending themes. I think we're getting pretty close to the end of ending themes. This one was all right. I didn't hate it, but like again, I'm usually a skip the opening, skip the ending kind of guy. Uh, when I have to, at least, I would ask
Right.
Rudy. Oh, there's Rudy. Did you
Right.
did you like Fish?
What? What do you mean fish?
The new ending from episode 96. We got a new ending animation because the last one only lasted like eight episodes or 10 episodes. We have a new ending theme.
Oh, I thought that was the same one.
No, well, clearly it did not make a big enough impact on Rudy.
They
Uh,
would blend together, I think.
Well, yeah, well, see, again, I just mentioned this, but like we're getting really close to the point in One Piece where they just drop ending themes. Episodes are going to just start ending with the to be continued and a short blurb about the next episode, and then that's it. For most of One Piece's run, there is no ending theme, and we're getting real close to that happening. But we'll always have banger openings for the most part, and that's episode 96. Rudy, do you have anything you wanted to add about 96?
Um, no.
No. All right, fair enough. Let's dive into episode 97, Adventure in the Country of Sand, the demons that live in the scorching earth. Um, so basically, um, they continue their journey towards Yuba. Luffy's tired, thirsty. So he gets a little bit of water, but of course, you know, he drinks too much. Um, and Ace is we get a little bit more view into like Luffy's backstory with Ace and whatnot over the campfire at night. And yeah, we get a lot more stuff where Vivi, and it's sort of a shtick they do with Vivi in this, where she just like doesn't tell them shit they should know until after they know it. Like that's one of Vivi's like shticks, is that she just is really bad at letting people know when shit is supposed to be a thing until after it happens. And it's just this thing where it's just a thing she does a lot. And I kind of get it. Especially where she's local to the desert. If it's something you kind of grow up in, you kind of become numb to it, and the information stops being something interesting or new. But like she sees Luffy playing with a poisonous scorpion and screams at him because again it's poisonous. She freaks out a little bit. They go off for a while and they end up getting a bunch of their stuff stolen away, which is very funny. Uh, they play a little rock paper scissors. Whoever wins will have to carry all the equipment, which is again they play this up for laughs because Luffy is an idiot. Um, he wins rock paper scissors, and then everyone loads all of his stuff onto him, and he's like, "Wait, why?" And he's like, "You said the winner gets to carry everything." Um, which is just incredibly Luffy. Usopp spots a set of rocks, and then they tell Luffy. Luffy runs off ahead of them because he's very fast. Um, a bird distracts Luffy and leads him to an area where a bunch of birds are injured. Um, so he grabs the bird and tells him he'll get a doctor and goes back to Chopper. The crew returns to the place to find that the birds are missing and all their stuff is gone, and that, again, Vivi didn't explain what was happening, but there are basically birds that are bandits, and they take advantage of travelers by stealing all their shit if they're idiots, which is very much on brand for Luffy. So you see the birds flying off with all their shit. Luffy gets pissed and chases after them. It's a whole thing with a big carnivorous plants popping out of the ground. Luffy's not in any real danger, and again, it's just kind of like, eh, it feels like filler. As far as I know, this episode is canon. I don't know. We're in this weird muddy spot where I can't remember where the canon ends and the filler starts. I'm pretty sure the next two episodes are filler for sure, and maybe the end of this episode. But like, it's this really hazy spot on my head because it's been so long since I read the manga. Um,
Hmm.
it's a whole thing. They end up coming back. There's some giant lizard stuff that shows up. They kill it again. Vivi shtick, where she brings up that she should have, brings up stuff about the lizard. But again, they just be like, you should have told us that earlier. We see the hard-boiled pervert camel show up, who only lets women ride him. Uh, the camel who saved Chopper earlier in the arc returns, having set off on his own, which is great. I love it. And then we all get ready to sort of carry on our journey. That's it. This episode does not have a lot. I believe they call the camel in English, it gets translated as lashes because he has very large eyelashes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's named Lashes apparently.
yeah, which is very on brand for One Piece and naming conventions, especially of side characters. Short episode. Oh, I mean, I mean, there was stuff happening the whole time, but none of it was super interesting. We don't really learn anything new, and the stuff we do learn about the desert isn't particularly relevant to us because it's all like filler content, right? Like, I mean, fun fact, once we leave Alabasta, we're probably not coming back to it because that's just how One Piece is, right? You just keep moving forward. That's kind of the whole point of the show. So learning about weird lizards in the desert doesn't really, turn the crank, as it were. Um, and I'll tell you something else. Uh, the next three episodes have so little to them, I have them all on one page in my notes.
Wow.
And normally, sometimes if the episode has actual lore to it, um, my pages will be one page per episode or one page and a little bit to the episode. But the next three episodes are all on one page. Um, so unless you have something you want to add for 97, we can dive right into recapping 98.
Hmm.
No? No comments?
No, I don't usually have like comments. No.
I know, but sometimes I might miss something or you want to add something. I like giving you the floor. It,
Okay.
if I don't, it just feels like I'm just talking and I feel bad. So,
I
I
don't know what to add.
I like making sure everyone has a chance to voice anything they want to voice about the episode. So we'll dive into 98, which is filler. For fucking sure. Here comes the desert pirates, the men who live free, which is very on brand for something Luffy would be interested in. Um, so the Straw Hats continue on their journey. Luffy's thirsty. Vivi and Nami end up getting ahead of the group because of lashes. Zoro is pulling Chopper because he can't stand the heat, which is like good because Chopper would probably be dying. He'd be cooking in that fur. Um, Luffy ends up eating some cactus, which means he's hallucinating, which is great. Luffy starts trying to attack everyone, and then he gets tranked, so Zoro ends up pulling him so they can continue. They realize they lost sight of Nami and Ace. Luffy wakes up, blames him. Everyone blames him for getting lost. And this is where the sand pirates show up. A pirate ship begins sailing through the sand, and they realize that they've captured Nami and Vivi. So Luffy runs towards them. He does his Luffy shtick, gets onto the ship, breaks their mast. A giant scorpion comes up from below the sands in front of Ace. We sort of cut away from that, and Ace basically tells the scorpion not to do it, which I love. I love Ace, especially when Ace isn't around Luffy, because when Ace isn't around Luffy, Ace is a lot more comfortable being like Ace, because we don't really know this at this point, other than the sort of interactions between Ace and Smoker. Um, but Ace is like kind of hot shit. I mean, ha 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 ha, fire, fire, fruit, jokes. Funny joke. But Ace is like hot shit in the One Piece universe. Like Ace would be mega famous at this point in the storyline. Which is again a weird thing that he was just walking through Alabarna and people were just like not reacting to him until they saw the tattoo on his back, and even then only kind of reacting to him. But like this will come up much later, but Ace is like a big important member of Whitebeard's crew, which we did hear him invite Luffy to join Whitebeard's crew and talk about making Whitebeard king of the pirates and how Whitebeard is the strongest man on the seas and Luffy you should join his crew and we can make him the king of the pirates and Luffy's not about that life. But Ace is pretty hot shit and I do love the scene where the scorpion shows up and Ace is like, "Ah, don't make me kill you. Come on." I'll do it. I don't wanna. Um Luffy ends up on the deck of the pirates and tells them that he's really thirsty. It's a whole again shtick where Nami's like, "You didn't come to save me?" And he's like, "Oh, Nami, you're here." I was really thirsty. I thought they might have water. So we find out that they're the Barbar Pirates, um, which is very funny. Luffy and the captain get along really well. Uh, once he apologizes for kidnapping the girls and threatening to eat them. Um, they say though they can't leave because Luffy broke their mast, which is fair. So Luffy, of course, now that he's made friends with Barbarossa, also can't believe Oda let them waste the name Barbarossa on this fucking uh this fucking nobody pirate from a filler episode because Barbarossa is such a pirate name, and they fucking wasted it on this man. Um, he decides to go get the wood to apologize for breaking it. They give him a sled. Um, and a crew member called Raza and Zaba are going to accompany them because they know a way to an oasis where they can get wood. Um, Ace has killed the scorpion. We cut back to Luffy. Um, Raza pushes Luffy and Vivi's sled into quicksand because she has issues, of course. Sanji and Joro are working inside the ship, talking to Nami. The pirates, a different group of pirates show up, who are like rivals. And a giant dung beetle is pushing a big old boulder over the dune to release it, towards the sled. Barbossa tries to stop the rock, after his game momentum, but he's overcome. Zoro, of course, does the Zoro thing, cuts it in half, and then Sanji kicks the debris coming towards the ship away. Um, we cut away from that to Ace. There's a giant gecko. They get in the way of each other. Uh, for some reason, the gecko seems like compulsed to stand in Ace's way. Like it doesn't want to. But every time it moves to the side, Ace moves to the side, and it's like a little comedy thing. And Ace is starting to get annoyed and gets a little threatening, and the gecko can see the dead scorpion behind Ace and just starts crying, which is very funny. Um, Luffy pulls Vivi and himself through the sand to Raza, basically pulling themselves out of that. They get to the oasis to find that everything's buried, and then we learn about Raza's backstory, where she has a connection to Vivi, because again, Vivi is like the alpha lesbian through which all women must love, apparently, because there's not a female NPC that interacts with Vivi who isn't in some way in love with her. uh, she's just the giga lesbian. That's just what Vivi is, and that's the episode.
That was quick.
Yeah, honestly, it probably went on longer than my notes deserve to give it. Uh, let's head to the next episode because we got more fucking filler to get through. Um,
Probably gonna speed run that one as well. Like,
this one is 7 lines in my notebook, and the lines are only halfway across the page. Like this is like,
four actual full line as well.
yeah, it's like my notes are literally goodbye, Sand Pirates, Vivi the Giga Lesbian. People are pretending to be the rebels. Oh, it's this episode. I know this episode. So basically, we find out that in a small village hidden away in the mountains, in the desert where the crew get dropped off, there are 3 people who are pretending to be rebels to soak up free things from the village. Ace is there. He shows up. He kicks their ass. They realize he's a big serious pirate and they can't deal with him, so they're gonna take all the free shit they've been given and run away. Ace leaves. Ace finds the crew. They heard that there were members of the rebel army there. Vivi gets interested, and then Ace goes, "Oh well, no, they're just schmucks." Like Ace is in immediately that these guys are just idiots looking for a free meal, and a free ride. Um, Vivi isn't happy with that because she thinks it's important that her people are protected. So what they do is they basically construct a situation where the fake soldiers um end up standing up against them because the fake soldiers get pushed into a situation by the townsfolk where they can't just walk away and run away from a conflict. And it's kind of that moment where the 3 fake soldiers, or at least the head one of them, realizes like they they wanted to be the kind of soldiers and heroes that they could be. Basically, they wanted to be the best they could be. And that's really hard, and it's a lot easier just to be an asshole and steal from people. Um, and they do find that resolve in themselves to fight back and die for a cause. Um, and God, they definitely would if they ever tried fighting the crew for sure. Um, Luffy lets to pretend the guy think he wins, and then they leave. And then those 3 or 4 bandit guys actually become protectors of the village and actually find their backbone. And Vivi is happy, and that's the episode.
Um,
That's it. That was like 4 minutes, maybe. That's it. I mean, the whole episode is just filler with a very cookie cutter plot that you will see in many things. I'm sure I've seen this exact plot in many things.
we
Um,
have literally just like
I
one
think
episode already.
I think there might have been a JoJo reference. I'm not sure. I think there's a moment where the Straw Hats are just standing around the gates menacingly, where it does like the sound effect, like the
Oh,
like the menacing JoJo sound effect.
yeah.
Um, I'm not sure if it actually showed the text on screen though. I don't remember, but if it did, that'd
I
be
don't.
very funny.
No, I don't think it did.
Yeah, if it did, that'd be very funny. That's definitely the kind of shit Oda would pull though. I don't know how Oda feels about JoJo. I know Oda loves the fuck out of Naruto and Hunter x Hunter. I have no idea about Oda's opinion on JoJo. But and I'm sure I've brought this up before on the podcast. I'm sure I'll bring it up again. But Oda and Kishimoto, which I think is the name of the author of Naruto, they're like really similar ages, and they were working in Shonen Jump at the same time. So they're kind of rivals, but they're also just like coworkers and peers. basically, and they just, as far as I understand it, have mad respect for each other. Um, and if you look online, you can find times where like Kishimoto has drawn Naruto in like has drawn Luffy in Naruto style, like as a ninja. And you'll see Oda drawing Naruto as if he was in One Piece. Like Oda has a huge thing for ninjas. Like as a kid who grew up in Japanese, Oda has a huge erection for ninjas and anything ninja. He loves Naruto. Um, and he's a big fan of Dragon Ball Z as well. We see that a lot. There is a movie where Naruto, Goku, and Toriko all show up on an island with Luffy and fight. That's that's one of the movies, or a 2 episode filler series or something. I've never watched
Mm.
Toriko. I know absolutely nothing about that show other than the fact that it's a, I don't know, you kill and eat gods. Like even I have no idea. I've never watched Toriko.
I don't even know. I didn't know about Toriko until I played J-Star's Victory Versus. I didn't even know he existed until then.
I had seen people talking about Toriko because again it was one of the things that came out in like Shonen Jump era after Bleach, and like I was really involved with like Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece at the time, and Bleach ended, so everyone was like the big three is over. It's just only Naruto and One Piece are continuing, and now Naruto's ended, so now it's really just One Piece. There's no big three anymore. There's just the big one. Um, but
I feel like One Piece gonna end probably in the next year or two as well, though.
no, not 5 years maybe. Um, definitely not 1 year. Oda said it would be 5 years about 2.5 years ago, but Oda also said it would be 5 years 4.5 years ago. The line keeps getting further and further back. One Piece is in its last saga, as far as Oda is concerned. We are in the end game of the story, but there are probably going to be at least 4 arcs in this saga, and they're all probably going to take at least a year to cover. Um, or around a year. We'll see. But that's episode 99.
Hmm.
Did you like it for being filler? Did you know it was filler?
No, I kind of like I paid attention enough to get the story right, but like some of these episodes are just kind of zoned out.
Well, the filler
And
episodes
even
that can
people
definitely
like
happen. Not all the
especially ones
filler
that like keep it's
not all the filler is equal in One Piece. I would say the first big filler with the dragons and Old Man Ryu, that's and Isa, that's good filler. Whenever I watch that filler, I cry, and I look forward to watching it every time. And then we hit filler like these few episodes with the desert pirates and the bandits, and I'm just like, I don't give a fuck about
I
any of
mean,
you.
I did like episode 100.
Yes, that's where we're going to now. We are on episode 100. And though this is another episode with a lot of lore that's delivered, it is also only about 8 lines of text, but they are full lines of text in my notebook.
Oh,
Unlike
they're full lines of text this time.
yeah, unlike the 98 and 99 which are only like half lines of text, the episode 100 it goes the full bit. So they're all traveling. There's some more arguing over water and whatnot. Um, Luffy, Usopp, Sanji all begin fighting for water, and Nami asks Vivi to tell her more about the Rebel Army, and Vivi tells her about an event that begins 11 years back. So we see a character named Koza, a kid, um, very much complaining to the king that his village has dried up and the king never came to save them. Um, and the king in turn explains that the water is out, like the weather is out of his control. He is he's a king. He has a lot of political power, but boy can he not control the weather. Koza's father shows up and beseeches the king to that he would accept any punishment for his rude son, and he, you know, a lot of child abuse between Koza and his father. His father has no problem just beating the shit out of the kid. However, Cobra promises to look after the village and anyone affected, that they could come to the capital and they would be giving places to live and food to eat. um, and to stay there basically. Which we hear people being like, like we see like people going, King, we really can't do that, and he's like, we'll find a way to make it work. I will make it work. If we have to sacrifice our stuff here, we'll do it. Um, Koza gets upset, yells at Cobra, and runs off. And we do get another beautiful line because again, like I said earlier, talking about the first episode, Cobra is a kind man in a tough situation, but he has a really good read on people. It's sort of like a superpower. And Cobra knows that Koza is a really good kid and he cares about the people. And when Cobra sees him, it makes him feel better about the next generation of people who will take over his country when he's gone because it means the people in it care about it and care about the people in it. Vivi's in the hallway. Koza's crying because again he got beat up by his dad and fighting with the king. Um, and they get into a fight. Vivi shows up, and she looks all beat up, because she got in a fist fight with Koza. And Toto comes running back talking about committing suicide, and Cobra's like, "Fucking kids fight, get the fuck over it." Cobra is so chill. I especially love flashback Cobra. Um, So we then cut outside, and we find out that Koza is the leader of a bunch of kids, including Vivi, because again he beat her, um, and has beat her every time they fight, because they do fight a lot. But Koza's always strong enough to beat Vivi, so she calls him leader. They all call him leader, and he announces Vivi will be his vice leader. And then we get this beautiful thing where Vivi is out playing with the kids, and we see that Igaram is like stalking after them in a very Japanese disguise. Where he's got like I forget the word. I know the Japanese words for this stuff, but I don't remember the getup. But he's just wearing like a really stupid disguise that is used in like Japanese plays for people who are hiding. Um, and Cobra's there too, stalking after them. It's like a little chain of people stalking Vivi. It's very funny. Um, and they're called like the Sunasuna clan. That's what the kids are called in this scene. This little cult Koza has started. So what ends up happening, is a group of kidnappers show up because of course they do. Vivi is the princess of a country. Um, and they try to kidnap Vivi, and she takes off. The Sunasuna clan starts trying to fight these people. And you know what? For these kidnappers' worth, they don't just start killing the kids. It's definitely implied that they could. They're all armed. Like they have actual weapons. They do disable the kids, um, and chase after Vivi, but they don't kill them. Um, so those two guys get caught up by the kids, and then a third man shows up and grabs Vivi. Vivi runs towards the ruins. Igaram and Cobra show up and see that the kids have been defeated and injured, and they get furious and they chase after Vivi. In the ruins, one of the kidnappers finds Vivi, but then Koza comes out of nowhere and hits him with a stick. Um, Koza defeats him, with his stick, but ends up getting cut under his eye, so he's bleeding a bit now, which Vivi has a hard time with. And then the other two show up, and it's a really important scene where there are two moments in this episode that are really good, and I'm gonna sort of backtrack a little bit. But when Vivi is about to be kidnapped and the Sunasuna clan runs in, Koza tells them to fight to the death, to like defend Vivi with their lives, and he means it. And he's a kid. They're like 8 years old or some shit. They're like 7, and he's telling this group of kids to die if they have to protect Vivi, and she has a hard time with that. And then when he catches up to her here in this moment, he like almost gets himself killed. Because there is this it's really creepily drawn where like the bandit is like, all right, you fucking brat, I'm done with this, and he pulls the blade out, like he pulls an actual knife or a sword on Koza, and Koza looks like a kid who is aware he's about to die. He's like, and but he powers through.
I'm honestly surprised they didn't slash them all down when they had the chance.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? Like the kidnappers, for their worth, weren't interested in hurting any of these kids. Which, you know,
Right.
I'm not trying to say, the kidnappers got a rough deal here. They're still very bad men, but they could have just killed all of those kids and took Vivi. But that wasn't the plan. They weren't there to hurt children. They were just idiots who thought they could kidnap the princess and make some money. And,
Mm.
like they didn't want to hurt the kids. The kids got in their way and would not let them right kidnap her, so they had to do something. And it's just this really it's just a really good moment where he pulls out the knife and we see Koza have that moment where he is a kid and he realizes this adult is going to kill him. And he still commits to it. And Vivi gets kind of traumatized by this, and this whole bit definitely leads into Vivi's current trauma. A lot. And her current personality, which will become a huge crutch coming forward. It's going to really cause a lot of issues with her and the Straw Hats and everything else. Um, so Koza gets slashed on the eye, but he takes the kidnapper out with his stick. Vivi freaks out. She's I just wrote down Vivi is having struggles. Um, However, Cobra and Igaram show up at this point and knock out the other bandits, and we see Cobra in the back like kicking them while they're down and yelling curses at them. um, and just being like Cobra, which is very funny. Um, so we get the moment where Koza recovers later. Um, Vivi cried and was like kind of furious. Because again, this really traumatized Vivi. Not the act of being kidnapped. What traumatized Vivi was the resolve in the other children to die for her. That
Mm.
was what bothered her.
Yeah. Good
It
point.
wasn't it wasn't the kidnappers, it was her friends being ready to die for her and meaning it. And that scared her. Um Cobra thanks Koza for his noble deeds, of course. Um and Cobra has a moment where he like asks Koza if he loves the country. And Koza says yes, it's where he was born. And Cobra's just like, yeah, me too. I love this country. And so what sort of happens is Cobra decides they're going to build a new city, a new town around an oasis called Yuba. And that Toto is going to be given like the head representative place and whatnot. So Koza and Toto are going to head to Yuba, which is where we're going in the story. Um, and so Koza and Vivi say goodbye. Um, and he tells them that he's going to build Yuba with his own two hands. And it's this great moment. And then the flashback fades away, and we come back. And Vivi comments that her friend Koza seems like a really good person, and asks like, what's he doing with the rebels and whatnot? Like, what's going on with him now? Like, how is he related to all this? Because again, Vivi asked Nami asked Vivi about the rebels, so Vivi's just, as far as Nami's concerned, just saying this random tangent. Like Vivi's just talking about this random shit that has nothing to do with what Nami asked. And then Vivi
Mm.
drops the shoe where Koza is the person leading the rebels. So again, we get more of Vivi's internal conflict where her leader, her best friend, uh, maybe now that they're more like adults, heavily implied possible romantic partner. I don't know. I don't think it ever goes there, but like it's kind of implied their relationship is hella tight. Um, is the head of the rebel army who is rebelling against her father. So it's not just a war between her people, this civil war and people dying. It's her father is fighting her best friend. Well, more likely, her best friend is fighting her father. And any one of them could die in this conflict, as well as like a million of her people, basically. And that's where
Yeah.
a lot of Vivi's conflict comes in. And we have to remember that moment where Koza wakes up and Vivi's terrified and horrified with his resolve to die for her. Because that is a huge trauma for Vivi going forward, and she is obsessed with this idea that nobody dies. Right? Like Vivi is a character who, over the course of the next episodes, we will see, is obsessed with her inability to deal with death of the people around her. And like, this is a war. You know what happens in war? People fucking die. And she's gonna get some hard lessons in the future, and that Oda just did a really good job between introducing us to Vivi, getting her on the crew, and then building up these character traits for reveals like this, where we realize why she's so traumatized. Why, when Nami was dying, like, Vivi abandoned everything in her head to help Nami. Because Vivi can't handle the idea of someone dying for her.
Mm.
Like, if this was like any other situation, I think, Nami might be dead, right? Like, well, no, because the crew wouldn't have abandoned Nami. The crew would have just given, like, whoever they were helping, like, a rowboat and said, all right, well, you're on your fucking own, because Nami's our priority. But, like, it's this thing where Nami stubborn-headedly was like, no, Vivi's under a lot of stress. We have to help Vivi. We're going to get to Alabaster as soon as possible. We have to help Vivi. And Vivi's like, you'll die. And I can't have you die for me. And it's just this thing. That's a big part of Vivi's personality, and we're going to see more of it moving forward. It's really good. You like this episode then?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I liked the whole thing where it was I think his name was Koza.
Koza.
Um, yeah, where he was like I liked his relationship with Vivi.
Yeah, they have a good relationship. It's a little weird because again, Vivi like it's this thing where Vivi outranks him in like every possible way socially, but she respects him in a higher position than her. Um, which is just interesting from like a I don't know, from like a narrative standpoint. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I really like Toto. I'm not in love with the child abuse as someone who was a sufferer of that. But I do love Toto's character a lot, and I love his design like so much. This just big, round, happy man who just really loves his country, really loves his king, really loves his son. But man, his little kid's a brat. I really like Toto.
Mm.
Um, but that is episode 100 of One Piece. Uh,
Oh my, we hit the milestone of 100.
yeah, only like 1/13th of the way there or some shit now, or 1/11th. We're getting there.
Yeah.
So at the pace we're
Um,
going right now,
we will not finish it until like a decade from now.
no, I mean, if we only record a session once a month, yeah. But like, I meant more in like sheer volume of episodes, uh, of how many episodes it would take us to get to the current bit. I think we're at like episode what 1100 at this point. So it
Yeah, it will take us another probably I don't know.
a long time. Basically, every
Yeah,
100 episodes is
probably
20. I'm just trying to do the math of the numbers, which should just be 1100
200.
divided by 20.
Take us 220 episodes.
Yeah, there we go. That's not bad.
Yeah, especially since we're on episode 20. Only 200 left.
Yeah, I mean, we're already halfway there. Um,
We are not living on the prayer.
well, hopefully, moving forward, we can be more consistent with recording. And maybe we'll bump up the episode count. I'm not sure. I know I wasn't against that, and I know you weren't against that, and I know we were not doing that because of Noriko's request. But I mean, I also don't know if Noriko is popping around anymore for these. Noriko hasn't replied to me in a while or sent me any messages, so I don't know if
Wait,
Noriko's.
really?
Yeah, I mean, I think Noriko sent me a link to their Discord, and I didn't get to it in time, and the link expired. I think it was the last thing we said to each other. Yeah, I don't know if Noriko is still in on recording. I know they weren't able to do the highlights anymore because they were trying to like focus in on what their channel was doing, which is, fair.
Which is fair
I
enough.
I don't give a shit what happens on my channels or my algorithms. If you people want to watch this, watch it, and I'll appreciate you doing it. For now though,
Well,
we're gonna end because I want to keep this episode under an hour just for my own sanity.
same.
So, thank you for coming by, everyone. This has been episode 20 of the Mite No podcast. We'll be back covering episodes 101 through 105 fucking soon, hopefully.
Eh.
Say goodbye, Rudy.
Oh yeah, goodbye.
Bye.